Hi, welcome to the Elle Russ Show, where I deliver content intended to inspire, educate, and motivate. Engage with me online at elleruss.com and on social media. Enjoy the show. I am so honored to have interviewed the following guest, one of my favorite authors and speakers, Alison Armstrong. She's an author, educator, and creator of the wildly acclaimed Understanding Men and Understanding Women transformational online series, which asks the question, what if no one is misbehaving, including you? Alison explores the good reasons behind the behavior of men and women, such as fundamental differences in the way we think, act, and communicate. She offers simple, partnership-based solutions to improve our communication and intimacy by honoring ourselves and others. She is known for her insight, sense of humor, and ability to articulate the human experience and predicament of gender. You can find so many wonderful free trainings and wonderful material on her website, which is AlisonArmstrong.com, and that's Alison with one L. Also, this episode with Alison will be broken into two parts, part 1 and 2. She was very generous to spend enough time with me, and so I will break up that time into part 1 and part 2. Enjoy. Hey everyone. Oh, I am fangirling right now because we have Alison Armstrong on the podcast. And what I love about you and your work, so many massive books for men and women. I like that you offer everything for all of us in dating and love and how to understand each other. One of the funniest things, I was just chatting with Alison before this, is letting her sort of know about, my primal background, which all of you listening know about. And she mentioned that she had some primal kitchen mayo and some primal stuff in her house. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I love the way...
It's really fun for me. It's fun for me, Ellen, to talk to somebody who I don't have to explain, that until we're aware of and accounting for our ancestry, if you will, whether it's all biological, right? And until we're paying attention to the instincts that we have, and the fact that most men and women have opposing instincts, all is lost. And the fact that I don't have to explain that to you.
Well, and that's why I really wanted, and that's why it's the audience will love this too, because I don't think, again, I've known about you for years, but again, your work is sort of evergreen. And one of the things you talk about, or we talk about in paleo primal health lifestyle industry, is this concept that, look, our genes have not changed in thousands of years. Okay. They are just the same, but the issues of adapting to modern life are the things that we're losing some of these inherent primal qualities. And then in your case, I love that you talk about, hey, we're not listening to each other because the way we're speaking is the way we're delivering from our species, this primal essence. And until we figure this out, so I guess starting there, I'd like to say, let's jump into human animal versus human spirit. Maybe that might be the best way to reel people in on this.
Okay, this is my fantasy interview already. Thank you. Well, and there are people who know so much more about this than I do, but I know enough to pay attention to it. And so what you're starting with is we have two nervous systems. We literally have two nervous systems, and we need to be aware of them, and we need to be aware of their differences and what one does and what the other does, and actually, by golly, have a partnership between the two. And so if you think of our sympathetic and then our parasympathetic nervous systems, and, the part of the brain, the lizard brain, as they call it, and the lizard brain's response to a threat, the perception, that's important. It doesn't have to be real. The perception of a threat or an opportunity, they're equally threatening, is always a split second in front of the prefrontal cortex, where you make executive decisions, where you have awareness and choice and values, right? So we have this survival, ancient fight, flight, and freeze response, which is another interesting conversation that's, in front of our conscious choices, and we won't even make the conscious choice unless we develop an awareness, including memorize the feeling of fear, so that you wake up to it, right? Instead of just react to it, right? Or
you mean in that moment? Do you mean
in that moment?
In that moment, you're saying, are you saying like, hey, wait, I sense fear. Let me think it through, because this is an instinctual moment.
Yeah, like for example, when men and women have what they call chemistry, right? We call it chemistry, and I'm very precise with words, and that's one time when I'm happy, right? Chemistry is in fact a chemical reaction, and when a woman experiences chemistry, as does when a man, this is one way where there's not a gender difference, the body secretes testosterone and epinephrine. So the epinephrine is what makes our skin all tingly and everything feels so alive. And the testosterone puts us in hunting mode. Get him or get her at all costs. Hunt that human down and possess it, right? And that feeling, that chemical cocktail is addictive. The feeling of it, we can chase that feeling. Part of one nervous system, our free will can get taken over by the pursuit of the feeling that chemical cocktail creates. And it makes us stupid. It makes us forget everything that matters to us. It has women unconsciously contort their postures to emphasize their curves. It has men contort their postures to look taller and broader and bigger and stronger. And I mean, it's kind of entertainment for me if I'm out in public watching people respond to each other, and he puffs and she curves and like it's like watching two pinball machines,
or like a National Geographic, wildlife show.
Yeah. You know what? Just like that. It's all this posturing, right? That's having it like all go off. And my boyfriend Dan, he told me, I don't know what caused him to tell me that a woman batting her eyelashes makes him crazy. And I'm like, what? And I batted my eyelashes, of course, right? And he like his brain malfunctioned.
I'm the same way though. In like, if on men, I think a lot of women are like this. When I see a man do a thing like he's building a shelf or some kind of like manly providing or like shelter, I go crazy. It doesn't even matter if I'm attracted to them. I just feel it. I'm like, oh, yeah.
The perception of strength. Women react to like, oh, he could save me. Oh, he could take care of me. And I actually coach men in this, because men who are smaller stature, they worry that, they don't attract women. And I've coached men and like, okay, so if you have a woman and you think maybe she's thinking you're not tall enough for her, just graciously invite her to an arm wrestle. And they're like, what? And like, just invite her to arm wrestle. And then if she agrees to it, which is a good sign, then don't lay her out. Just hold her hand there long enough for her to realize how much stronger than she is you are. Just for her to realize, just by that she can't make your hand budge. She'll do everything to try to make it budge, because we're competitive and we have a lot to prove. And just hold it there long enough for her cave woman to recognize, he's stronger than me. He's a lot stronger than me. He could protect me. I'm better off with him than without him. That'll all happen usually without us even noticing it. And then boom, chemical reaction. And I teach women, if you really like a man, but you're not having chemistry for him, go looking for strength. Well, what's strong about him? I was this way with my husband. He wasn't my type. but I had this incredible resonance with him.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided that at that point I was questioning my judgment and decided to pursue resonance. So I encouraged him, right? And I kept encouraging him. And then I started noticing things about him, like, whoa, that nose. That's really strong. And what did me in were his hands.
Yep.
I looked down one day at his hands, and I was a goner. He had these long, to me, what they occurred was long, intelligent fingers. Intelligence is a huge strength, huge turn on, right?
Mm-hmm.
So intelligent fingers with a thickly muscled, right? He'd, been riding motorcycles since he was 14, so his hands were like muscles, right? And it just, I was, if I hadn't been sitting down, I might have just like wobbled on my knees. I had a visceral response to that strength. And for the men who are listening, and ladies, this is a beware as well, because we'll respond to things and then act without awareness, without conscious. And so bad boys are attractive to women because it's perceived as a kind of integrity, that this guy's going to do his own thing. And we see that as a strength. Integrity is a strength. House MD, that rascal jerk, a turn on because of how true he was to himself. Yeah, and I'll tell men, stand up to women. If you stand up to us, then we know you're strong enough to fight our worst enemy, the tiger within.
Absolutely.
If you can do battle with the worst part of me, that's what I need the most protection from. So when you're like, no, I don't buy that. That's not who you really are. Really?
I love how you talk about sort of, a lot of people think that dating has to do with their past. It's more about our species and this sort of difference, the way we are not in sync. And you mentioned it earlier briefly, but if you can get in a little bit more of that, like the hunter and the gatherer, the focus versus the diffuse awareness and scan vision, I think that's such an interesting thing for our audience to hear, because I think that says a lot.
Yeah, sure. Well, can I give you a little background though?
Oh, yeah.
So when I started studying men in 1991, which I really thought was going to be a short stint because I knew, of course, they're shallow. And I suspected they were soulless. And I just wanted to learn enough to get along and stop bringing out the worst in them. And, 31 years later, I'm still in awe. I'm fascinated by them. I've never committed to studying them. I've just had a ball for 3 decades. And so when I started learning about them, and first thing I did is I learned to listen to them, which means don't interrupt. That thing women always want, just listen, try it. And no, we're always trying to connect. Oh, me too. Oh, but what about, right? So when I learned to listen to them and listen and listen and listen, what they most wanted to talk about was women. And as they were describing women and why they love women so much and what makes women magical and mystical, and like one man said, the unicorns in the forest, it took me a while to realize they were describing what they label femininity. They were describing femininity. And I didn't know squat about femininity. I was born in 1960, so I grew up in a confusion, right?
Right.
Have a man no matter what, but don't need him, right? Mm-hmm. You got to have one. You're worthless if you don't have a man, but you're worthless if you need him. So have him, but don't need him. And so when they're describing these qualities and the way that a woman can walk into a room and change the dynamic entirely by how she's being, and she can do that positively or negatively, but when she does it in positive ways, it's just in awe, like, honey, that doesn't happen when you're not here. And the wonder that men have about women. And so I started investigating, and I investigated with the labels of masculine and feminine. And I started describing masculine energy, and can I say biological words on your primal?
You can say, yeah, no, you can say anything on my show. This is absolutely swear words, whatever, you go for it.
Okay. So back then, the way that I would describe masculine energy is like an erection. Make way. Forceful thrusting. The world needs to make way for it. And that feminine energy is like a womb. It's like a vagina and a womb. It makes space, right? We can make babies because we have a space in which babies can grow in our bodies. And so feminine could be thought of as you create space for things like the quality of compassion. Compassion creates a space for love and understanding. And women who embody compassion, what shows up around them? Love and understanding, and people feeling loved and understood. It's irresistible, right? And it occurs like magic because it's not visible. Right? And this is why men think we're so amazing. We're magical because you can't see it. Everything that's masculine, you can see it. Mm-hmm. It's action oriented, it's generating, it is making stuff happen. And so that's how I joyfully started working with masculine and feminine. But once I started teaching in 1995, I was always having to do battle with what people already thought it was. That masculine is inherently controlling and self-centered and bad and mean and uncaring. No, it's not. Erections provide a lot, Ellen. There's a lot of providing going on.
Well, and hunters are providers, so yeah.
Absolutely they are. And then, and the feminine was associated with being weak and a pushover and not necessary. And so there was a time after I wrote the Queen's Code where I abandoned masculine and feminine. It was just an uphill battle trying to have people have an empowering relationship to those terms. And so I was trying to think, okay, there's got to be another way to express this that isn't masculine and feminine. It isn't these loaded words and is fitting to human beings. Yes. And that's when hunter and gatherer. Oh my God. Wait a second. The anthropologists have been calling us hunter-gatherers for years. Are we hunter-gatherers? Am I a hunter and a gatherer? Are you? Well, it turns out yes. But what if there's something going on at the biological level that actually causes the brain to configure itself in a way that's more suited to hunting versus more suited to gathering? And single focus is one of the first things I discovered about men, and this gave me a new way to illuminate single focus and why it makes perfect sense. And even the studies they've done on the difference in vision between men and women, that the faster an object is moving, the bigger the difference between a man's ability to track it than a woman's. Huge difference. And then women's vision, and even that most women, their eyes are a little bit farther apart than most men. Like our eyes are built for scanning. It's why we have a survival instinct that triggers things that are out of place. If it's out of place, how did it get that way? Was there a bear here? Was there a danger in my environment that had this not be the way it's supposed to be, or even the way we arrange furniture so that we can see a tiger coming? We can't block our line of sight. It's frightening, and we'll just not know why we're compelled to move that chair just a couple inches one way or the other. Or, so why do we notice everything that's out of place? So when a man says, "Honey, where are my keys?" we know the answer. We couldn't not see it, right? And I've asked men, do you notice that you assume we know where your keys are? You actually rely on us for that? Where are my keys? You don't say, do you happen to know where my keys are?
Right. You just know we know.
Yes, they know that we know. Did we sit down and talk about this? No. We know, and they know that we know. It's so old. It's old. And so then looking at this, so this scan vision and this way that our consciousness takes in the entire environment and the mental, emotional, physical states of everything in it, well, you would need that to be able to move through a meadow and see what's worth taking home for one reason or another, but keep an eye on the kids and keep an eye out for threats. You'd have to be able to have a macro program. Yes. Am I safe? Am I safe? Am I safe? Is it safe? Is it safe? Is it safe? You'd have to scan for threats constantly, or human beings wouldn't still be here, right? And so just, my thing is just to make sense out of things. What if there's a good reason for that? And hunting and gathering, which I now think of as hunting mode and gathering mode, and my students, human beings objectify, right? We think if we can label it, we can handle it. It's a safety, false certainty reaction that causes a lot of problems. But we just label things, and then we feel safer. We're so driven by feeling safe. So he's such a hunter. Oh, she's such a hunter. Oh, he's too much of a gatherer. And like, you guys, people are way more complex than this. So then I started talking about hunting mode as a way of being and thinking and processing and speaking and listening. So active, right? Not an object, something active and fluid. And how can we switch ourselves from hunting mode and gathering mode? But people still said hunter and gatherer. So lately, Ellen, I've been talking about a committed state of mind and what that does to everything, emotions, feelings, which I distinguish, right? Processing, perception, everything is affected by a committed state of mind versus an open state of mind. And what happens with an open state of mind, and how do we experience safety in a committed state of mind versus how do we experience safety in an open state of mind? They're literally opposites. And so this opposite sex thing, but then as hormone levels create so much of it in food has a big impact on hormone levels. Yep. Rest has a critical impact on hormone levels. Women getting to do activities that we've done for ages as gatherers, the rhythmic hand motions, builds oxytocin, which increases our capacity to have orgasms, which increases our fertility because it makes the vagina safe for sperm. Like it's all
work. It's such an elegant whole system.
It is. It's really, I'm in awe. I'm in awe of it, and I'm in awe of like men, talking to men about safety, and anybody can see this on our website. There's a free sample of the first 30 minutes of Understanding Women, which is called Central to Understanding Women. And I ask men to think of the last time they were afraid for their physical safety. And I think there are about 120 or more people in the audience, and about 40% men. And I asked the men to raise their hands if the last time they were afraid for their physical safety was in the last year. And out of all of them, maybe 2 raised their hand. Yeah. Okay, what if it was in the last 5 years? A few more. The last 10 years? A few more. How many of you have to go back to your childhood to remember a time when you're scared for your physical safety, afraid for your physical safety? And then a few more will raise their hands. And most men cannot remember having been afraid for their physical safety. They don't remember that. They rarely experience it. And one man.
I just wanted to interject on that because it brings up, this is just a nuanced thing that I didn't think about. So one of my great friends became a trans male at the age of 42 and was telling me that one of the issues with his trans female friends, and this is likely maybe based on not having that scan vision and not having this experience you're talking about of fearing for their life, that they're walking around in places where women would be like, okay, not going to go down that. You know what I'm saying? They've run into problems because of that. They almost have to be taught by women the scanning safety mechanisms of going out into the world as a woman. Because they just didn't have that within them versus my trans male friend who maybe is now a guy and feels a little bit different, but has that experience from being a woman in the past. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't even think about that being an issue. And he goes, it's a big issue with trans females. So it's just kind of interesting that I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah. No, I could get that. And they've done, hormones shape the brain. And they did a study of men who agreed to take very high levels of estrogen. And within a few days, every man quit the study because they were overwhelmed by the input. The way the estrogen opened up their brain and connected all these parts that weren't connected, and diffuse awareness set in, and suddenly the pillows are talking to them, like to most women, I'm crooked. They couldn't stand the amount of information that was coming in. They felt crazy, and they quit. They just flat quit. And as I teach men about women and diffuse awareness and the amount of input we had, my husband's reaction was, how do you guys get out the door? I'm like, well, if you pay attention, you see it's really hard because there's so many things. And I give an example of all the things a woman thinks has to be done before she leaves on a trip versus everything a man thinks. It's a huge difference. But just to finish what I was talking about, so we asked the men this, right? And they what's the deal? And then I asked women, so how many of you, the last time you were afraid for your physical safety was in the last year? Like 98% raised their hand. And the men are going, what? And I said, now keep your hand up. How many of you, the last time you were afraid for your physical safety was in the last month? A good 60, 70% keep their hand up. How many of you was in the last week? Now we're talking like 20, 30%. How many of you was today? The men start to cry because the last thing they want for women is that we're afraid. They would never want us to be afraid. And when they find out we're afraid of them, my husband cried when he found out I was afraid of him.
They just didn't know. Yeah.
They don't know. They don't know. Men don't know how scary they are to women. And so they don't know how many times they're actually, I hate the word triggering, but what they're doing, a woman's reaction is to emasculate them in order to feel safe. Take your power away so I can feel safer. But if you just take this apart far enough, right, and in this primal way, and you can see this committed state of mind versus this open state of mind, and the committed state of mind screens out everything that's irrelevant to what you're committed to. Well, when a woman decides she's going to get married, by golly, she switches to a committed state of mind. And her brain screens out everything that's irrelevant to getting married, including, this is not the right guy for you. This guy does not take care of you. He does not give you what you need. He's really disrespectful. In fact, he's just physically attracted to you. You're bringing out the worst in him by you keep flashing your tatas. So you're getting a primitive reaction from him while you're in a primitive hunt a man mode, and this is going to be a disaster. That would be considered irrelevant too. So, it's just, and then how, like, there are women, when we're in an open state of mind, we're so happy, right? We're just, we're puttering around, making things right, fixing things, making ourselves happy. And then a man, it's got to be a man because he's bigger and stronger, says, we got to go in 5 minutes. Boom, committed state of mind. Everything irrelevant to that is going to disappear, including being kind, including being polite, including saying please and thank you. Like, she changes. And this happens to women all the time. Someone gives us a deadline. It's called deadline for a reason. Any farmer knows what I'm talking about. And all of a sudden, her whole orientation has shifted. Her vision, her processing, her interpretations, her relationship to language, she'll lose words. Like, it happens instantaneously. And knowing this is actually good, because then you can start doing it to yourself. How do I shift myself into hunting mode? Because I got to get some stuff done. Set a timer. How do I shift myself into gathering mode so I can be open and connected with my family? Realize I have plenty of time. Take a deep breath. You've just activated aromatase, which will convert your excess testosterone into estrogen, and that'll feel good. It doesn't feel good to a man when you make him chill and just listen to you when he's ready to get something done. He feels biologically emasculated, which he is. His testosterone is being converted into estrogen. That's why he's squiggling like that, because he feels like he's getting weaker and weaker and weaker. Right? So you can see a man squirming when a woman is, mostly we just are outflowing, right? And the outflow, I assert, has to do with that I think we smell it, that we can smell that he's now strong enough to be handy. Like he's not just sitting there going, right? Because they spend their testosterone and then they have to really rest to recover it. That's how they build testosterone, us too. And so now he's recovered enough by doing nothing, right? That's what they say. What are you doing? Nothing. And then we think, oh, goody, I'll have you do something. But we can sense, okay, now he's useful. Now he's handy. Oh, please listen to me, right? Because we get so full. Diffuse awareness, that the gathering mentality, we get so full. And a dear friend of mine, her favorite thing I ever told her to tell her husband is, until I get all of this out of me, you can't be in me.
Great.
And all of a sudden her husband, who would talk her ear off at the end of her long work day, was totally willing to listen and listen and listen. Just let it flow over him. No problems to solve. The deal is nothing to remember, right? So it's something we teach. We call it emptying the basket. But when a woman is outflowing and a man starts fidgeting, right, because he's supposed to just listen and he can't because he's not built for that. And then he's wondering, how the heck am I going to remember all this? And then he realizes he can't, and he can't tell what the point is. So everything he's hunting for isn't happening. So he fidgets, and then his eyes glaze over. When he realizes he can't remember it, he's going to be tested and he's going to lose. And we take it all personally, that he doesn't care about us. And it's the opposite. He so cares about us, but he hasn't been set up for how he's built. And it's such a simple adjustment to just say, honey, you would save me if you let me just barf all this out. Yeah. Hold the trash for me, be a good girlfriend, maybe hold my hair back if you need to. And just let me get it out. There's nothing to solve. You're actually solving it by listening. And you don't have to remember anything. I promise there's no test. And then you better keep that promise. And then when he listens and listens and listens, and you notice you're liking him and liking him more, and maybe you want to take your clothes off, make sure he knows, honey, that was awesome foreplay.
Yeah, the appreciation and reassurance. Yeah.
Exactly. And I mean, this is what people have reported over and over and over again. If a woman gets to do that, and he's set up so instead of being emasculated, he's like, I'm saving her from the alien within. Yes, I'm the man. I'm the man. And so he's empowered. She's empowered. So this is the thing I'm passionate about. These little adjustments, right? These ways to set things up that have these opposite instincts, ancient instincts, not have to be a disaster.
Yeah. One of the things you were mentioning once, maybe it was the In Sync, Men and Women in Sync audiobook that I was listening to. This sort of how the concept of time with men and women, I just thought was interesting to display that whole, like, oh, I've wasted 3 years versus what the man thinks. Can you just kind of dispel that? I think, so many people resonate with so many of these things. We hear it, we go, okay, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's been my thing, right? Just make sense of this. What if no one's just behaving? What if we have a good reason for everything we do? We just don't get it because we're projecting our reason onto someone who's actually wired the opposite. And so this has its origins in just the biological fact that a woman's reproductive years are extremely limited. And women push it to the edge. By the time we're 37 years old. We have less than 10,000 eggs in our ovaries, the ovum in our ovaries, and we were in utero. We had millions, and by about 29 years old, we're in the hundreds of thousands. And it's not the 29 that has us go It's our brains registering the lower levels of hormones, because the ovum provides half our testosterone and almost all of our estrogen. And so the disappearance of them and the lower levels of hormones, our brain freaks out, like, we got to get busy making babies here. Yeah, it's really intense. And one of the things we try to have men understand, that clock ticking is real, in our Understanding Women course. And so if you take this very limited reproductive period of time in our lives, and that men have virtually unlimited. You know, I have 2 brothers-in-laws that sired children in their 70s. Wow. So, yeah, that was interesting. And so you have very limited to virtually unlimited. And so for a woman, our time is something we're investing, which is a concept I try to jog women out of, that the idea of investment is that you're setting something aside, right? Like you can't spend it on anything else. You're spending on hoping this relationship will turn into what you're looking for. And you're often going without something you need now, betting on ROI later, right?
Yeah.
And then the more time the word I've invested so much in this relationship. Okay, invested. That means you've gone without what you need, and going without what you need turns you into not the best version of yourself. And men don't relate that way, right? They don't think, we've been together for 8 years, I've invested so much. They may think, well, in the last 8 years, we've gone through so much together, we made it, we stayed on the same team while we solved problems, because they expect problems in life. So they want to know, how are we going to do when there's problems? Oh, good. I didn't become the enemy when there was a problem. We stayed on the same team. If we can get through this, we can get through anything, right? Let's do this. Let's make a family. Or, it could be 3 months and they think the same thing, because they're so quick to know who we could be for them. They're so much more perceptive than they get credit. And a woman will just keep thinking, I put so much time in already, I don't want to start over. But often who she's become and has proven to him, we don't have what it takes here. I love her, but I can't give her what she needs. And that's a requirement for him. He's got to know he can make her happy and give her what she needs, and he can get enough of what he needs from her without it being too hard to get, which is, for anybody in a relationship, if you want to prevent it from going over the cliff, that is the very courageous question to ask. Is there anything you've given up on getting from me? Or is there anything you need from me that's just too hard to get?
I was thinking, can you break down for us how the primal instincts align with like just the 3 month and the 9 month sort of like quote benchmarks with women? Because that's such a classic. It's like when you talk about it, you're like, oh boy, here I am.
Yeah. It's funny. In sync with the opposite sex, I created to transform dating, and I'd been married for, 15 years or something at the time, and had not dated in the online era at all. And, but I had so many friends and colleagues that were it was sucking life out of them, men and women, so many students that just were begging. So, I went looking for the good reason for all the disconnects. And, In Sync with Opposite Sex first talks about the 9 ways that we're already disconnected before we're even dealing with ourselves as individuals. It's nothing to do with your personality, nothing to do with your history, right? Ancestral. And one of the big disconnects is that this whole biological cycle, which there are anthropologists that think that Neanderthals lived in separate groups of male and female, and then got together on the full moon, where when we lived outside, when we do live outside, all women ovulate on the full moon, hence lunatic, right? So, so we're all wound up on fertility, and they show up with food and trade food for sex under the full moon.
Such a simple
sometimes
life back
intoxicated. It's just very simple, and it makes sense of. And men die. They just are like, their jaws drop when they realize this. Like, this is why many women will go Dutch, like on the first few dates, because they don't want sex to be expected of them, and they haven't even articulated why they think that would be. That's how old it is.
Yeah.
That food for sex thing is so old. No, I won't let you buy me food because I'm not going to owe you sex. And
right, it's like, I may not like that, but that is so true. Even nowadays, with all ages going on dates, it's this. It's like, oh, I want to let the man pay, but also I think people are like, you know what? Let's stay away from dinner for the first one. I don't want to feel like I owe anyone something. I don't want someone to feel like they. It is. It's like ingrained.
Yes. And men, when I tell them about this, they're like, I could have gotten sex. It could have been that easy. Right? They're just stunned because they don't know. So they don't know about the food for sex thing. They don't know that if you imagine that we, got together on the full moon, oxytocin kicks in, we're going to follow your tribe back home. So this is where you get women stalking men after sex because we got hooked in. The orgasm especially, but sex period, causes a surge of the bonding hormone. Just like, think of Velcro. I'm attaching to you. I'm going to follow you for the next 2 weeks, at least maybe 3 weeks. And then when my period starts, I'll think, oh God, I didn't even like him. Why did I want to be with him? We get released when we realize we're not pregnant.
Is that, by the way, is that sex? Back in the day, I understood that in modern times, would the same hold for any orgasm in any context, even if there was an intercourse, vaginal penis intercourse between a male and a female? Would you still say, oh, giving someone an orgasm and having that oxytocin is still the Velcro, or is it really the escalation of the home run on the bases that does it?
Well, I can only tell you from personal observation. I'm one of my own lab rats, and I think it's a scale. Yeah. But if you think of, and this I remember. So this is the thing I wanted to tell you. I was so excited about, right? Because the next thing to understand about this, like if you step back from male female into human, right? And then human expressed as male female, you get what I call the hierarchy of instincts. And this is I've only been paying attention to this for about the last 5 years. So nothing on Audible talks about this because all of that is at least 12 years old. All the new stuff's on our website. Yeah. And, but instinct with opposite sex still stands. I use it myself. When I became suddenly single, when Greg passed, I went back to instinct. Okay. How do we do this?
It's one of the best. Yeah.
It is. It's source material. But okay, I'm going to stop at two things because it asks other questions. We have two tracks going here, the 3 and the 9 month. And we have, what really triggers the attachment. So let me finish the 3 and the 9 month and then I'll go back to the other one. Okay. Is that all right?
Yeah.
All right. So the 3 and the 9 month, what it talks about in sync, and I think people can prove it, that, for about 3 months, we're willing to get to know you. But at 3 months, which is when a pregnancy would be viable, we want to know, where is this going? And we change. We actually change 3 months in. We're very open and curious and having fun. We also are showing our best self. We're not likely to set a boundary, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. We're not likely to get involved in a fight. We're going to present what we think is attractive, and which means we're also not going to bring up any problems, mm-hmm. which means for 3 months, man doesn't know how do we solve problems together. So we actually instinctually were withholding everything that would tell them what they need to know about us to commit. And they need to know our boundaries. They need to know that we know who we are and what we need. They need to know that they can give it to us. They need to see how we handle problems. All the things that we're not displaying are the things they need to see to know we have a future, which is so sad, right? Because men they're very committal. They know within the first 3 minutes if we could be something really important. 3 minutes. They're that perceptive.
Versus women where it would take longer? Are you saying they're even faster at that assessment than we are?
Well, yeah, because they can see the long-term qualities. They get accused of just judging on the physical, and physical attraction is very powerful. And as you heard in Sync, it makes us both really stupid. Chemistry. It's really, really stupid. But yeah, they can tell the qualities that have them fall in love with women and want to give to women and take care of women. We talk about in Making Sense of Men, an ebook. They're all visible. I mean, that men can see. They can see self-confidence. They can see authenticity. They can see when a woman's real. Like, what you see is what you get, and that's what they want. So all the concealment we're doing is not in our favor. Passion is the third most attractive quality in terms of men being emotionally attracted to us and spiritually attracted to us. Third is passion, and the fourth is receptivity. And that's the hardest for us to do these days. We're so busy proving I can do it myself, and we're also very suspicious of men. So we're not receptive to what they try to give us, and we're not receptive to who they are, like as a human being, as a spiritual being, right? They're so rich and deep, and like I was, most people think they're not, because men don't talk about what's important to them if there's any fear or sense that it'll be used against them. So they keep conversation very superficial until someone demonstrates that I've learned something important about you. I didn't attack you for it. I didn't try to change it, and I didn't tell anybody else. In fact, I respected it and maybe even was proactive, like, is there anything you need from me about that? Do you want any support? Right? We didn't give them advice, right? We just, this fact we learned about them. Like, Dan, my boyfriend, was just here getting a hug before he goes golfing with his son on his son's 18th birthday, right? And that I'm just so for his relationship with his children, and I know they're his first priority. I knew it very early on because I was listening to learn, right? What's important to him? What's important to him? I've never expected or wanted to be his first priority, which, hallelujah, for him. And so it's the way we're listening, the way we're paying attention, the way we're curious is what has men, and the way we are honoring is what has men go, okay, this is safe. I can give my heart. I can show my heart. And they love so passionately. Their emotions are, honestly, they're more intense than women's, and we're overwhelmed by ours. And theirs are more intense. I swear it.
I think so many people are going to be happy to hear that.
I hope so, and I hope we get curious about it. They're so beautiful, but back to this thing. Okay, I'm going to finish one day. You listen so amazingly.
I love this.
I'm like you punched a button, and I can't not. So, okay, so 3 months. Where is this going? Right? And men don't know. You know, when a woman kind of says, so, usually what she says is, so how do you feel about me? And feelings are so deep within them, right? Fine. I feel fine. And she doesn't know she's asking the where is this going question, because it's something women always do. We because our decisions are made so much out of our feelings, we think if we know their feelings, we'll know what they do. We don't know that they actually consider it dishonorable to act on your feelings. That honor is to do the right thing no matter how you feel. So what a man thinks and what he values and what he believes to be right will tell you so much more about what he's going to do than asking him how he feels. We're going on 12 tangents now. Chill out, Alison. So 3 months, we need to ask a better question. So do you think this is going to turn into something? Are we going to be really important to each other? Like, ask a direct question instead of the how do you feel question, which we think is a direct question. But they know much earlier. And if you're safe, they'll tell you the truth. No, I don't see it for us. We're going in two different directions. I really enjoy being with you, but I don't think so. And then don't try to change their mind.
Believe people when they tell you things like that. Yeah.
Yes. And we so believe in change, and we believe, well, when you love me more, you'll change your mind. No, his decisions are not based on love. He could love you with all his heart and still know it's not a good idea to commit to this. So, this is why I have 100 hours of online videos.
Yes, so good. I know every audience member is going to be right at your website and after this.
So at 9 months, of course, that's when a baby would be born if we got together on the full moon. So we're expecting an engagement, some kind of commitment. And if it coincides with any Christmas, New Year's, Valentine's Day, I used to write for Brides Magazine. 70% of engagements happen between Christmas and Valentine's Day. And there's a lot of expectation. And then after 9 months, like, relatives are saying, so, and there's a lot of pressure, and it gets icky. And we think he knows it's 9 months he's supposed to propose some kind of commitment. And he doesn't know. He doesn't know. He didn't get any of these memos that we're sure he is disobeying. Okay. Do you want to say anything before I switch to the other tact? Because it's so important.
All right, everyone. That is the end of part 1 with Alison Armstrong. She was so generous to give so much of her time that we were able to split it into 2 episodes. So stay tuned for part 2. Hey listeners, over the years a ton of companies have approached me to collaborate, but I will only promote companies whose products I believe in and that I actually use and consume on a regular basis. So let me tell you about some of my favorite companies that I can offer you discounts for. Rep Provisions, an amazing company doing incredible things for our planet, topsoil, and animals with regenerative agriculture, and it's my #1 source for quality pasture-raised meat and chicken. Visit repprovisions.com and use code L15 for 15% off. I'm also obsessed with a company called Carnivore Crisps. They make a lean, all-natural, and delicious alternative to conventional snacking, made with just real meat and real salt. Totally addictive, and my favorite ones are the beef brisket and the ribeye. Visit carnivorecrisps.com and use code PALEO10 for 10% off. I also love and regularly use Paleo Valley products. They make amazing supplements and delicious paleo products. I use the superfood greens powder, grass-fed beef sticks, the organ complex, and their bone broth bars. I love the lemon and apple. I also use their essential C complex and more. Visit paleovalley.com/promos/Elle Russ for 15% off. I also love Primal Kitchen. They make delicious paleo-approved, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, and no refined sugar products, and I use them daily, from their collagen powders and sauces and marinades to their avocado and olive oil. So good, so healthy. Visit primalkitchen.com and use code L10 for 10% off. I also love paleo powder and use it almost on everything I cook. They make incredible seasoning blends, and they also have these incredible grain-free coatings that feel just like crispy breadings that you would have had prior to knowing that there's another way. So visit paleopowder.com and use code L15 for 15% off.